Currie is a man who has always believed in dreaming big, and his career is a great example of that. It's taken him from Box Hill to Hollywood, from opening and running his own drama studio in a rented room in Paran to working as a producer on Mel Gibson's blockbuster Hacksaw Ridge. Paul, thank you so much for coming along today.
No worries. Nice to be here, Leslie.
Paul, I want to start with the Elliott Currie Drama Studio because I think that was it was a foundation in so many ways for your work and career.
Yeah, it was. Definitely.
You started that in your early 20s, didn't you?
I think I started teaching acting when I was 18. So I had a bunch of method books. I'd met this wonderful schizophrenic lady who I connected with, and she had this entire world of method books, and she decided she wanted to give them away randomly. I kind of felt like life is presenting something to you, Paul, and she was adamant that I needed to take these books. And they were some of the, going back to the original group theatre, a lot of Stanislavski's stuff, Chekhov stuff, Meisner, there was all sorts of the masters in these books. And it wasn't just the traditional books. There was some really interesting kind of, very precise. Her mother was a teacher. And anyway, so I had those books and I started to look at them, and then I went to this studio and I went there and I just felt wrong the way they were teaching, and Coralie, God bless her, said, you know what, I see something in you, you can try a class. And I tried a class, and it went on from there, and I did a couple of classes, and I was teaching young people, and it became a laboratory to I'd read about the method and what it was, and then I'd try to interpret myself, look at the psychology of things, and just test it with young people, and line up 10 actors, let them all do the same thing, and why am I gravitating towards a particular performance? So
wow.
That was kind of a laboratory, and then I guess from there, I started helping her build the studio. The studio started to grow, and then she got very ill, and she wanted me to take over the studio, but her husband had other ideas. And so I thought, you know what, after kind of just taking my time away from it, I thought, you know what, I'm going to start my own. So that was the beginning of it, and I started with young people, and then transitioned to adults, and the studio just started building.
Yeah. I think at the time that it was really at its peak, it was the most successful privately run acting school in Melbourne.
It was pretty big. I think I was doing about 2 classes a night, 4 nights a week. So it was pretty busy, yeah.
Which is an amazing amount of work to do.
It was good, but I loved it. I mean, it was so raw. The people were great. And we were all it was a time where what we were doing was on the edge. I mean, years on now, you kind of look at that and you go, the work was great. It was pure. We were exploring the texts, we were exploring the great teachers, and I was kind of dissecting the best of, and then trying to give each actor their toolkit, so to speak. So it was unfolding as it went.
And it was also highly experiential, so it was a hell of a lot of fun to be part of.
Yeah.
So you hardly noticed that you were getting amazing tools.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it was such a blast to be.
I think that was the director in me that was always monitoring the emotional journey of the class. So I was unconsciously or consciously probably working storytelling. The arc of a session was in the actual class. So it was occupying people unconsciously and thematically. And so the classes had, a little bit more emotional satisfaction than what a dry acting class might have.
Yeah. So that tells us a lot about what the students got. What did you get out of the school?
I was learning. I was expanding. I think I was karmically adjusting from my wayward teenage years and learning the power of empathy and connection to someone and where pure impulses come from. So it was a point where I think I was kind of distilling a philosophy. What could I take from all the work of different actors and acting teachers, and how was I going to go test that in the world? I think it was my laboratory of learning in preparation for what was to come, and I didn't know what I was going to do. Everything was very intuitive. As I achieved something, I wanted to just keep learning and keep expanding as a person and as a teacher and as a director, as a filmmaker, all of those things. So,
and then along came Under the Gun.
Under the Gun, which was my first movie with a dear friend of mine who I'm still very close to, is Richard Morton. Yeah. Beautiful man who really kind of was the person that got me into film and taught me about the market. And he wouldn't know it. I think he does know it, but he's just a beautiful human being, and we've had a friendship. Gosh,
it's a long time now.
Many, many, many years, and we're actually still talking about doing a project together. So that's lovely. But yeah, so Under the Gun was kind of my beginning of learning how to take an idea, attach talent, and then be able to pre-sell the idea internationally and raise money on it locally. So it was kind of the beginnings of, and it was at a time where pre-selling and everything was rampant in the film game. It's a lot tougher now. And so, yeah, it was my Roger Corman of filmmaking learning, and it's a lot that was very good about that, and a lot that I didn't do that well as, but that's part of the process.
But it was, you were 26, 27.
Yeah, I can't even remember what.
And that's an amazing achievement.
I think I might have been younger.
Yeah. I think it came out when you were 27. So, yeah, you're probably 25, 26.
Yeah.
So how did you organise the finance for that? Because it was a private finance.
Yeah, it was a private finance because the government was like, we're not interested in a martial arts action extravaganza. I think the working title in America was Iron Fist. So that was before Marvel and all that. So a title like that was like, this is bad genre filmmaking. But it was a journey with the director, a guy called Matt George, he was kind of starting, and he was passionate about writing, and Richard and I kind of connected, and I wanted to learn about what he knew about. He'd had a wealth of experience. He'd done a lot of movies, and so yeah, we thought it's low budget. Let's make it contained. Richard had bankability, so we had to attach another actor or several other actors that were in that world that had cachet. So I learnt the value of what talent could bring. I actually had an offer on that movie from New Line that was well in excess of the budget.
Wow.
And just for domestic US, and I said no. So I thought I was going to make so much more money by doing what we were doing. I was mistaken. It was a time where I learned how to put something together, how to kind of get a budget, value the project, attach talent. We used what was called a 51-1 tax structure. So this was in and around the 10BA and even before 10BA, I think. Yeah, we got an accountant and various people involved and put it together. And the film actually made money. So we shot it for a budget. We pre-sold it and then sold it, created a trailer, went out there and took it to the markets, and it sold, and it returned I think, I can't even remember, like 40 or 50% over and above the investment.
Wow, that's fantastic.
For everyone involved. And yeah, we just learnt a lot. But you know, it was about friendship, exploration, pushing the boundaries, and trying things that we'd never done before. So it was a good, really good, like my film training, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the studio really helped with that, because a lot of your community rallied around.
It was amazing. Again, the power of community and just giving students practical experience. So everyone got involved, and we didn't have the money to afford everything that we did. And I think even back then it was centred at the old Richmond Power Station, and it was a nightclub, and we had no money for extras. We were not union. We couldn't afford to do any of that. So it involved community, and people were happy to be involved because they were all learning. We're all learning, and it was, I think a whole bunch of the students were a part of it all, and it was good for the studio. It was, I called my production company Coalition Pictures, and because I think any endeavour is a bit of a coalition.
Absolutely. So, and then along came One Perfect Day.
Yes.
Which you wrote, directed, produced. And you took a slightly different approach with that one, because you actually did a proof of concept, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Thanks to your good selves. I probably shouldn't be referencing that, but people like you guys, you know. It was like, that was a more, because that one I didn't have. I couldn't access larger name actors, so back then, you know, the work of the studio was expanding, and I was learning, and I thought, okay, you know, how am I going to do this without a Richard Norton? And even though Richard helped out and was going to at one point play the villain of it, but you know, how do you put all this together? And so it was. I thought, okay, we're going to have to show what we can do, because it was an edgy kind of it was an edgy musical piece that kind of juxtaposed, you know, it was a journey of a kind of a musician into a world that he didn't understand, and artistic creation that came out of that world. So I thought, okay, if we're going to have some kind of a juxtaposition working, I better be able to show that visually. So it began with exploring you know, these edgy scenes, and I think I'd started Reach then, maybe just. So I was kind of learning about the plight of young people, so I was trying to kind of combine all that. So we just got a lot of, again, people in the community to help out. We shot very specific things, so we weren't trying to shoot the movie, we were just trying to shoot a trailer.
And how did that help you sell it? Yeah,
so we shot a trailer, we shot component parts of it, and we then had accompanied that with pitch materials, and you know, it gave the movie a more tangible way of introducing it to people. So it was using the world that I knew, which was young people, and a story that was a bit edgy, and people could see some of the visuals that we'd done, some of the action of it, and I think we did it over 2 or 3 days. I can't even remember, but it was a very effective tool to actually end up raising the money. And that was, you know, that movie was all privately financed again. I think it was like a $6 million movie or whatever. Wow. And we raised all of that privately.
Where did you find the money?
Through the networks, you know. Reach had opened up a whole world of people to me. You know, that's why I will always be forever grateful to Jim. You know, the people that you meet along the way are so interesting in helping you with that kind of thing. Like Richard was a huge beginning in my career. Jim was another one. And, you know, if the work's good and you're working with good people, your networks just gradually open. there was a lot of people that were interested in that kind of a movie, and we had a lot of wonderful investors in that particular movie. And you know, it was a big privately financed movie in Australia. There's not a lot, and we had like 11,000 extras, and we were doing all sorts of things. So it was still to this day, that movie has travelled the world, and it kind of represented a moment in time in culture, the kind of the rave culture, dance parties, you know, rawness, music, drugs, you know, all of that. It kind of was an interesting cocktail. And because the piece was quite authentic, because we were shooting real parties and that, it kind of became a bit of a cult movie. So it didn't have as much of a big theatrical release around the world, but people went on and found the movie. So it's been, you know, it's still to this day, I get people calling me from or reaching out wherever they can find me, asking me about One Perfect Day.
Wow.
So bizarre, you know.
So let's talk about Reach. How did you and Jim Stynes decide to start that?
How it started was a couple of actors, Jackie Tarabay and others, told Jim about my work when he was doing this thing called Sports Camp. And it was a big gathering of people, young people, and they were having chaos. The whole thing was pretty out of control. They had all these high-profile sporting people, but they weren't that skilled at facilitating. And so as part of the session, I went up there and did this emotional drama session, and it dropped the whole group, and all these kids had really amazing revelations and all the things that you experienced and we all experienced in the acting classes. And Jim was really moved by that. He kind of wanted to learn more about that. So he decides he's going to rock up to acting classes. And he started, he was the tallest in the class by a long stretch. And he just started to want to learn more about that whole dramatic form, hero's journey, storytelling, emotional authenticity, all the things we were doing. And then, you know, at some point he said, well, why don't we carry a bit of that into something that we could do that's purely for young people? This is very powerful. And I kind of said, okay. And again, it was another experiment and another way of learning. And I thought we knew enough about the dramatic form to test it with truthful situations. So, you know, there's nothing... If something either has a core truth or it doesn't, and young people were a great mirror back to you if something works or it doesn't. So that was, we kind of just started to do a few workshops and went into a couple of schools, and so began Reach. And we did not expect it was going to grow the way it did or become what it did. It was just another form of expression and exploration and trying new things.
And congratulations on your nomination for Australian of the Year for the work you did with Reach. That's amazing. Must have been an extraordinary feeling.
It's not something I would ever lobby for myself, because I feel like, you know, I'm just an artist really doing his thing. And but it was lovely. And but I just, it's the memories of Reach, and still to this day I'm thinking about maybe doing some new things with Reach to go in and kind of reinvent it again.
So are you still on the board?
No, I haven't been in there in probably 10 years.
Yeah, because you haven't been around.
Yeah. So, but there's part of the legacy and part of Reach. Reach was a very organic, expressive organisation, and every 2 to 5 years, Jim and I would flip it and create a really interesting idea that drove the creative and everything else. And I feel like it would be remiss of me not to try to, with all that I now know, to try to reinvent it again, which but it's when the time is right. And
let's take you to Hollywood. How did you get there?
After One Perfect Day, I had quite a few people interested in me to direct, and we knew the challenges of making films here, and And I kind of had a bigger vision for storytelling, and I liked scale and budgets, and I was very entrepreneurial, and not afraid. So I remember a very clear, vivid conversation with Jazz and saying, I feel like I want to just give it a crack and learn it over there. I dabbled in it, but I didn't know enough. And so, so I started playing around with a project that, again, I could kind of value and create money. So I had enough to start to venture over there. And, I never forget, Jazz came over and we're in an $80 a night hotel on Hollywood Boulevard. And it was far from what we thought going to Hollywood would be. But I kept persisting and learning. And then, again, I had a good network. So a beautiful guy, again, another fantastic guy. Two really great people in my life was a guy called Charles Morton. Charles Morton and Phil Gregory made One Perfect Day with me. Yeah. So they were both came out of the Reach network. And, all these incredible, like the guys from PricewaterhouseCoopers, many of them helped get that movie done. And Charles and myself met another gentleman by the name of Dominic Benvenuto, who was a property developer and had a passion for film. And I still know and am in business and would help Charles anytime I'd help Phil. Dom has been with me helping support for probably 20 years. So, and we've just had a great journey. And so we had an idea. I kind of valued the company, created a kind of financial model, and then had enough money to go over and set up a base over there. And then we had a couple of projects that were really interesting, and that was how it all began.
And then Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah, well, I went through, we did a movie called Rampart over there with Woody Harrelson and Sigourney Weaver. We'd done a bunch of things. I'd come very close on a very big animation that right around where the financial crisis hit. So that was a very rocky road. There was another great gentleman, Garrett Callagher, who bought into the vision of the company. So we had cash behind us. We learnt a lot about the business. And then out of this animated movie, I met an amazing gentleman, Bill Mechanic, who I've now done several movies with. And Hacksaw was his vision and his extraordinary story. And at the time, we'd made a movie in Australia. We'd done a couple of things. And we said, Australia would be really good for this. And Bill had worked with Mel on Braveheart. So the two of them had done that together. And he was just a huge supporter. And I knew Mel's partner very well, Bruce Davey. We'd done some things. And Bill just firmly believed this was Mel's movie, and he worked very hard to get him to do it. And at the time, it was a controversial decision, but he was just an amazing filmmaker, and the movie was beautiful. Hollywood didn't really understand it. It was a hero without a weapon, yes. Which was the whole point. Yeah, it was not an easy film to get made, and it was through Australia that we were able to make it. And we were able to bring it back here, put the rebates together. The whole community here got behind Mal, Bill and myself and others. Bruce Davey was involved and a whole bunch of really good people.
So you were one of 7 producers.
Yes.
What was your role?
So my role was mainly to help Bill bring the project to Australia. And because that was the way the movie was going to get made. And we'd done it before. So I helped lobby for Mel to kind of come back here because he was going to get qualified as an Australian director, so we could get the finance. And Mel had an Order of Australia, so for his contribution through NIDA and all of what he'd done with the industry. So that was really powerful, and it just goes to show, you know, the community here in Australia is wonderful. It's a community, like everyone knows everyone, and if there's a great idea or something, you can reach out to people. People are here to help. And so Screen Australia, the producer offset unit at the time, Graham Mason, who's still in charge, was a real person who helped us put that together. And you know, that film became proudly Australian. You know, there was only, I think, 4 or 5 non-Australians that worked on that picture. And if that movie had been made in Hollywood, it wouldn't have had the passion, care and love of the Australian community, which I think with Mel and Bill and Andrew Garfield and Vince Vaughn, everyone just got in the zone with that thing, and it became really special. And Mel and Bill are just 2 amazing filmmakers.
It's a very special film.
It really is.
And it won 2 Academy Awards. Congratulations.
Yeah. I was just a part of it. I feel like my role was my role was to do the front end of it, the setup of it. Then when you've got guys like Mel and Bill, they're going to go on and do what they do. And then I came again back in at the end with all the rebate claiming and all of that kind of thing. But
so a lot of the stuff that you've been talking about is quite detailed, quite business oriented.
yes.
Which is a set of skills that you've developed over 20, 30 years.
20, 30 years, unfortunately. I wish I developed them younger, but anyway.
But that is an extremely different set of skills to what we were talking about when you were running the school in the first place and the directing side.
Yes.
And you are the consummate actors director.
When you've got millions of dollars involved, it's a production line. So it needs preparation, it needs structure, and it's made through a set of principles and processes. So any good director that's able to continually work has to think a bit like that in order to have a career. And I think that's what working in America taught me, just the discipline of it all. And so I guess what I'm able to do, which is very good for people to know, is I'm able to take an idea and try to go, okay, number one, you've got to test your idea. You've got to say, is this idea worthy of going out into the world? Because if you can't pitch it to others and they're not interested in it, you've got an issue with the idea. Yeah. So if your idea is good and it speaks to the truth of the human condition, it's thematically accurate, then it has a reason for being. And then out of that comes an ability to present it, to try to conceptualize the idea for others, because it's a visual, emotional medium. So you've got to get it into the hearts and minds of people. So you need to take it off the page. A script is a very hard thing to sell. And a lot of young filmmakers think, okay, I've got my script, I've got my budget, I'm going to be able to go out and sell that. Well, it's not that easy. You've got to be able to create a proof of concept. And whether that's a visual document, whether it's moving pictures, a finance plan, all of those things, you have to run a rigor on the whole idea and justify why this particular idea should come into existence. So the creative's got to be good, the proof of concept, the thing that it invites people to understand, it's got to be good, and then all your elements that you bring together have got to be good.
So that it would include your budget, and at that point have you got a real sense of the length of the shoot, and all of those things need to be part of that?
All of that. So
hopefully you've got some people attached to it.
Yeah. So I would start with an idea. I develop a script. I normally attach people with profile in the development process, because sometimes that's easier to sell a writer that's got credits. And then from there, the script then gets developed to a point, then it's always accompanied with visuals. And then from there, once you've got something specific, either myself if I'm directing or if someone else is, you bring a director on to help take it to the next level. And then from there, you budget it, you finance plan, you schedule, you create your offering? You know, are you going for rebate financing, and are you going for local government financing or federal government financing? Are you going for private equity? What's your way of putting all that together? Are you pre-selling internationally? All of those things make up the finance plan, and there's a degree of sophistication. So it's not just me going around with an idea going, can you give me money? There's a way of approaching it that from an investor's perspective, it makes a bit more sense. So I've just learned how to do that over the years. I find it hard to not do that, because otherwise it's a lot of money for people to put in on a half-baked idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know one of the things that's very important to you is transparency and accountability.
Absolutely. So I will always run very good financials, because film is high risk. There's no two ways. And the longer I've gone, the more I know that. But if you are honest with your transaction, if you do the right thing by everyone, and you have financial transparency of everything, then people tend to respect that. So win, lose or draw, and I've done all. I've won really good, and I've also drawn a bunch of times, and I've lost. But I've always had transparency, and I've always aimed to put every dollar I could up on the screen and not take it for my own gain or anything else, or anyone involved in the project. They're always pushing the boundaries towards trying to make the best version of that project possible. And I think that's really important.
And I think you can see that in everything that you do. There's a real through line there of the networking. And you've said several times that you've been working with people for more than 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, creating that network and being able to sustain those long-term relationships speaks a lot, I think, to the way you do business.
Yeah, I love people, and I always want to try to do the right thing by everyone. And sometimes that leads me on a lot of, I can sometimes engage too long with people and waste a lot of time. But at the end of the day, my heart is pure in the endeavour, and people know that, you know, they either get that or they don't. And things can go astray, but at the end of the day, are the people trying to do the right thing? Yeah. And are they doing it in a professional way? Yeah. And I think if those two things are happening, and I am responsible for those, if I take someone's money, I'm responsible for making sure that project goes the best it can. Yeah. Otherwise, I won't take their money. Yeah. So, and I think that kind of counts as years go on. And
now I'd like to turn to your interest in China and where you see China fitting into Australia's film industry.
Yeah, well, China I think is fascinating because I did my first exploration into China on a project with Bill, and it was a big project, but we learnt a lot because we fell into a lot of potholes, so to speak, because it's complex how it works. There was a lot of good people involved, and I could feel the industry just exploding over there. So their box office was starting to rival the US, and they were wanting to learn. And I think Australians have a really wonderful way of being able to, we're good teachers, we're good facilitators. Our culture wants to please. So sometimes that makes us very good conduits for projects. So America and China have their issues just because of the cultural differences and biases and all sorts of things. But Australia has a long trade history with China, and we're the underdog that likes to help. We're not as, our economy is not as strong. We're not one of the superpowers, yet we've got a lot of wonderful things to offer. And so I just always, I felt like China was the future. And when that was 5 years ago, and people just went, what are you doing, you know? But I just really liked the people, and I liked the sense of creativity, and I feel like there's a new genre that's emerging as the world becomes more globalized, and you know, there's the Hollywood genre, and that is what it is, but I think there's also a more of an East meets West genre, and filmmakers like Tarantino or Ang Lee or the great Chang Yimou, they're able to make these pieces of art that kind of have a filmmaking structure that works in the West, but also has a much deeper philosophy that part of that China has, karma and cycles and, you know, a different form of mythology, a patience, a restraint, you know, it's very different to the American entrepreneurial way of living life and the American dream. China's dream is different. Communism, capitalism, all of those things. But I think it's a fascinating way of the world and where we're at in the world and maybe where the world is going. So I just really found it a fascinating place to explore. And so I've done, you know, a bunch of movies there now and here and been able to perform well for them. So I've been able to, with Bill and another beautiful man, Rick Nacita, who's used to be a big Hollywood agent for CAA. He was chairman of CAA, and Bill obviously ran Fox. So, you know, we went in there and we kind of pitched them a vision for multiple films. So, and we're able to, find an amazing partner in Weibo, the big social media platform. And we're doing a bunch of movies together that are Western movies, but that will also work in China and work around the globe. So,
that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing for Australia and the country and what we can do. And I think it's another form of volume of work here rather than just production servicing American films, which we do a lot and do well. But China is a lot more open to collaborate and so it gives Australia a chance to own the IP as well. So and put the money back into the industry here.
Yeah, because we've got fabulous people.
Yeah.
Our techies are just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
But they don't work all the time because our industry is...
Yeah, no, that's right. It's you know, thanks to, I'd say the last couple of years has almost been a bit of a renaissance, and it's busy, and that's because of the rebate. They've just increased the rebate, the federal rebate, to 30%, which is fantastic on larger scale movies. So it's about volume for the country, and but China I think is a key to that in the coming years. It's like a laboratory again. I like to try new things and keep going and ever learn, and I'm learning a lot from not only America. I learn a lot from my American partners, but also from the Chinese, and I'm just trying to perfect things more and try to put a few more really good pieces out there into the world.
So that's one of the themes, I think, in your life and career is continually learning and being open to new things that are happening. Another one is the networking, being able to create those communities and hang on to them and really add value, but and be genuine. It's the genuineness, I think, that sits there. And I think the other thing for me that has always been a hallmark of your work is championing the underdog.
Yeah, I do. I love that. I love that. So, I mean, learning is so important because there's so much to learn. We are but here for a very short time, and there's just so much out there, and I think you've always got to be humble in that and forever evolving, and sometimes I don't learn enough. I'd love to keep going and take time out and just go and study, but that's really important, and community is important because you don't do things as an island. Filmmaking is about a lot of people and all working together, and you've got to see the gift in each person in what they bring you, because it's their gift that makes something really special. And I guess that crosses over in all my work. I've always tried to help someone find the best part of themselves and their expression. And so yes, I love the underdog. I love the person that may not have the most traditional path or may not know how to do things. I always want to take the time to try to help nurture someone on their way. And that was the work of the studio, of Reach. It continues to be in my work today. I love the people of China, and I love our industry, and I love the artists and the collaborations and the memories. And so I've had a blessed life. I'm very lucky. I love long relationships. You know, I'm a friend for years, and I remember the special moments I've shared with people, and they're the currency of your life. You know, that's the currency of storytelling. And, you know, if you don't value that and surrender and follow that in your life, then I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. So that's who I am, and it's who I'll always be. And I just want to keep evolving and keep trying to carry as many people along the way. I'd love to really keep Australia expanding and growing, and help with what I've learnt to help other young filmmakers along the way as well. It's a pay it forward business.
It is. And you've been paying it forward today, and I thank you so much for your time. It's been fantastic.
My pleasure. Great to see you both. I'm breaking the fourth wall, but you know what? It's friends are friends. Yeah. So no, it's wonderful what you're doing. And again, Leslie, as many years you've always given back, and you've always been one of the great supporters of my life. So I always remember that. So when you ask me to do something, of course I would, because I know you function off that same way of being, both of you. So, you know, it's why I always will help wherever I can and honour our friendship.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. I've been with Paul Currie, and you've been watching Tête-à-Tête. Thank you for doing so.